Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared probably doesn't need an introduction at this point, because it's so hardwired into regular internet users' collective memories that it's not even freaky anymore, it's nostalgia. I remember showing the original video to friends in 2011 when it had about 30,000 views, which is just insane considering its reputation on the internet now. Also, I'd estimate that I get about 20,000 hipster points for liking Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared so far before it was cool. What I always not only loved but respected about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is that it isn't just a children's puppet show with gore elements done for shock value, like so many an internet creepypasta. It would be incredibly easy to just get some soft toys, filter it with desaturated colours, and throw pieces of raw meat around. What set Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared apart was its use of perspective. It's not just a clever parody of children's media. What it is adult subject matter viewed through the lens of children. It comes across as cryptic because at its heart the format is genius in its simplicity. You're meant to watch it as if you were a child. Like, what is this shot of a cake with meat in it supposed to be saying? Well, if you tell a kid that a cake isn't suitable for vegetarians, they'll probably say something like, wait, so is there meat in this cake then? So what the hell am I eating? Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared's target isn't so much children's media as it is the way that we teach children about certain subjects and prioritise rote factual input over an emotional understanding of the world around them. What does a child hear when they're, say, introduced to the concept of love? An intangible abstract emotion that's not easily explained through simple songs and talking anthropomorphic characters. When you tell a kid that there is one special person out there for you, who you will be with until the day you die, and you explain all the bigotries that have been built into love over the centuries, and you can't give them an emotional understanding of it through simple songs, all these traditions of love can end up sounding creepy. There are rings that bind you together. Some people don't have a special one because they're ugly. Love has to be a specific way just because. Just imagine if you weren't familiar with this stuff. Society's idea of love has become so trapped up in tradition and rituals that it ends up sounding like a cult, where you're just doing nonsensical things just for the hell of it. It makes about as much sense as feeding a massive stone head gravel. This is why Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared has been a fucking goldmine for YouTube analysis videos, because it has a simple childlike lens that distorts almost everything in it, and makes it so it's begging to be analysed to death. And it does openly taunt those analysers. I was unsure how it would translate from 5-minute YouTube videos to 25-minute episodes because the formula was typically one subject is introduced, one song follows it, and it builds to a particularly demented conclusion, often involving death. But the transition is surprisingly fluid. The main cause for concern about making this a TV series was that Yellow Guy, Red Guy and Duck Guy are typically quite passive characters, and they don't have any agency. They're essentially children, and they're there to react to any crazy characters that happen to show up and kickstart the episode's topic of conversation, completely unprompted. But that actually works wonders for its overall purpose of exploring how strange and uncanny concepts like death, work and family can seem to children. In many ways this is the perfect vehicle for horror, because in a horror you need a character whose agency is stolen by someone or something. And children are ideal for that because they don't really have any control over their lives. For the most part, children aren't seeking most of the experiences they go through. They're entirely shaped by experiences that are happening to them as a result of adults telling them that this is what friendship is, this is what family is, things should be done this way. The work episode is utterly perfect in the way the characters seamlessly transition from a song delivered by a talking briefcase about all the wonderful careers out there into them being thrust into a meaningless repetitive job in which they make non-specific bits and parts, and one character is assigned the role of boss just because. Some characters are allowed to use the good vending machine and others aren't, and if you question how or why any of this works, you're considered the problem. When viewed through an innocent lens, the childlike characters are trapped in a sinister environment looking for a way out and are being forced to confront the fact that life is meaningless, banal and goes on for decades until you look like shit and suddenly you're retiring, at which point you die. The series continues to hammer the point that the original web shorts made, that despite the educational facade of the children's television show format, the characters don't actually learn that much. And the point that it's trying to make here is the way that adults limit themselves when talking to children. We try and cushion children against heavy concepts because we think it might be a lot for them to deal with, but when we do that, they can end up forming their own deranged ideas that can also end up being traumatizing. They're presented with concepts like death and have it explained to them by a talking inanimate object in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to them, and can end up skimming over key bits of information. Like, obviously when someone dies, they're not still alive in their coffin, but a child might end up thinking that when an adult gives them a simplified explanation of what's happening to Granny at her funeral. The show highlights how emotions are typically missed out of adult explanations of the world to children, and when you do that, things can end up sounding even more sinister than they need to. Not just things like death, even completely innocuous things. Like in the family episode where two creepy twins explain all these family customs to Yellow Guy, and he ends up trapped with this creepy, intimidating group of people in an homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Emotions aren't discussed at all when they're explaining all these family traditions like the games and the tree. And so the concept of familial bonds ends up looking like actual physical bonds to Yellow Guy. I guess Don't Hug Me I'm Scared speaks to me because this is an entirely accurate representation of how I saw the world when I was growing up. If you can't remember much about how the world looked to you before you knew what death was, then that's why Don't Hug Me I'm Scared ends up being this cryptic puzzle to the internet where everything is supposed to mean something, when the show openly doesn't make sense, and that's the point. Don't Hug Me I'm Scared is a visual representation of what children see when, as typically happens in life, they get a glimpse of the real world beyond the cutesy, happy, bright and colourful facade that adults have built for them. I also found it hilarious when it spent a huge chunk of episode 6 directly commenting on people's tendency to overthink Don't Hug Me I'm Scared by having Yellow Guy meet a mysterious figure at the top of the house who gives him a book which seems so important and mysterious, but because our characters are functionally children and can't understand anything, they just shred the book and laugh about it. This is what I'm saying, you're not meant to understand Don't Hug Me I'm Scared from an adult's perspective. It's not supposed to make sense. That's the point, and that's why I think it's a work of genius. What's that thing? I think it might be my mother. Should I eat it? You want to eat your mother? What's in the box? I think it might be death. What does the box mean? Is the dinosaur a metaphor for something? Why not make tedious analysis videos and drive my YouTube analytics audience engagement? #DeathBox. Anyway, while I've got you here, advertising time. You cannot click away from this tab. There is no escape. I'm currently holding a crowdfunder for my next short film. It's called Got Your Nose, and it's about a kid whose uncle played Got Your Nose with him when he was very young, and now he's grown up with a psychosomatic disorder where he genuinely believes he has no nose. It sounds like a joke and it's a silly idea, but I decided it would be fun to play it as a serious drama. You can pledge now and get access to a ton of perks to help bring this project to life. Link in the description.